another historical fiction author chat. And I am very happy to have my friend Bryn Turnbull here. How are you doing, Bryn?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's been a while. I'm excited to chat with you. We're talking about the Berlin Apartment, which is coming out
Yeah.
in 1 week. So you out there still have time to pre-order. And we've
Yes.
talked about pre-orders in the
It'll be
past, I
so
think. Look at
pretty.
that. It's so pretty. We
Right?
talked
I
about
know.
pre-orders before, and what they do is they help the numbers of the pre-orders help us in our ratings for our very first week of the lists, the big important lists. So you go out right now and pre-order your copy. All right. So I haven't spoken with Bryn since her last book, and yeah, well, we have lots to chat about. So I'm going to
We do indeed.
yes, we do blah blah blah. So I'm going to read your bio and the synopsis, and then I will throw it over to you. I hope everyone is ready for a nice, relaxing little chat here. All right, the bio is Bryn Turnbull is the internationally best-selling author of The Women Before Wallace. With a Master of Letters in Creative Writing from the University of St. Andrews, a Master of Professional Communication from Toronto Metropolitan University, and a bachelor's degree in English Literature from McGill University, Bryn focuses on finding stories of women lost within the cracks of the historical record. She lives in Toronto. And yeah, I want to talk to you about that too, about talking about the women in history and how it seems to, we do a lot of that, you and I. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the synopsis for the Berlin Apartment. For fans of Kate Quinn and Kristin Hanna, two of our favorites, this sweeping love story follows a young couple whose lives are irrevocably changed when they're separated overnight by the construction of the Berlin Wall. Berlin, 1961. When Uli Neumann proposes to Lise Bauer, she has every reason to accept. He offers her love, respect, and a life beyond the strict bounds of the East German society on which she was raised, which she longs to leave more than anything. But only 2 short days after their engagement, Lise and Uli are torn violently apart when barbed wire is rolled across Berlin, splitting the city into 2 hostile halves. Capitalist West Berlin, an island of Western influence isolated far beyond the Iron Curtain, and the socialist East, a country determined to control its citizens by any means necessary. Soon, Uli and his friends in West Berlin hatch a plan to get Lisa and her unborn child out of East Germany. But as distance and suspicion bleed into their lives, and as weeks turn to months, how long can true love survive in this divided city? I have not read it yet, and I'm very excited. But I did pre-order. I hope you've all pre-ordered now. I've got the link down below here. All right. So now it's over to you, Bryn. She's going to tell you a little bit about what she's reading, and I'll be back in a bit.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Genevieve. Hi, readers. It's lovely to be here and be chatting about the Berlin Apartment. I was saying to Genevieve, this is actually my first interview for this book, so I hope that I'm not too rusty. But it's been a minute since I've done any reading, so I hope that you like it. I'm going to actually read the prologue to the book, which really sets the stage for Lise and Uli's love story, and it is a very dramatic, very intense sort of love that drives these two over basically the entirety of the wall's existence. So, declassified on the orders of the Stasi Record Agency on December 22nd, 1994. The 19th of July, 1962. My darling Uli, the world can change in the space of a heartbeat. That's what I recall telling myself on the day that you proposed. I think about that day so often, and it seems both more and less real to me than my life now, a moment spent on the precipice of joy and despair. In that space between your question and my answer, time seemed to slow somehow. Thinking on it now, I could swear that the sound of traffic outside the window fell silent, that the rain hung suspended over the stopped cars on Bernauer Strasse. I suspect it must have been agony for you, sitting there with the ring between us, waiting for me to respond. There was something in the silence I longed to savor, the possibility, I suppose, of what your question held for us both, the endless hope I felt in the moments before it all became real. Perhaps I wanted to remain there because real life carries risk, real love carries pain. bittersweet heartbreak. For isn't that what lies at the heart of love, Uli? The inevitability of betrayal in one form or another. Betrayal by infidelity, by apathy, by sickness or death. A beginning contains at its very core an end. I wonder, is the risk of love worth it? But I wasn't thinking about any of that on the day that you proposed. All I could think about was wanting to live in the sweetness of that moment, in the space between question and answer. I suppose then that there's some justice in love, because I've lived in that unbearable purgatory every day since. Yours always, Lise. Undelivered, intercepted by the East German Ministry for State Security on the 20th of July, 1962.
Oh, I love that. That was well done. Undelivered. Oh,
Thank you.
and that
Yes,
comes so
yes, this book has there's a lot of correspondence in this book, and not all of it gets to where it's supposed to go.
makes
So.
sense. Makes sense. And I do love when we include letters like that and how we're able to use the way they spoke and build in. There's a different feel to letters now. Of course, ours are rarely on paper, but it's more casual, and that was beautiful. Thank you. It was very poetic.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
let's talk about the Berlin apartment. I want to know where the inspiration came from first. How'd you come up with this idea?
So my first three novels are really, in a lot of ways, they're much more about sisterhood. And that's really kind of like the central theme that in all of those books I explore. And with this fourth novel, I wanted to tackle a love story, and I wanted to kind of just go deep into like a really intense and emotional love story. And in the research that I was doing for my last book, The Paris Deception, which is set in Second World War in France, I did a lot of research about Germany, of course, and what was happening in Germany during the Second World War. And then the question that kind of came to mind is what happened in Germany after the war? And of course, the answer to that is that the country was split into two. It was split into East Germany and West Germany, capitalist West Germany and communist East. And that seemed like such an interesting setting to kind of put these lovers in, these star-crossed lovers. What happens when when it is the overwhelming, an inevitable love that is going to last your whole life long? What happens when something just completely and utterly throws it off track? And for Lise and Uli, it was the Berlin Wall. And it was such an interesting kind of time and place to play with because so much was happening. I think in a lot of ways, Germany in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, during the Cold War, it really is a microcosm for what was happening on a global scale. And being able to kind of explore that within sort of like the confines of Berlin itself, I really found that a very interesting challenge.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And there's a lot of historical fiction right now, of course, focused on World War II, which we do not get tired of. We love that. But the whole expansion into other decades is intriguing to me. I'm working in the 60s right now too. And it's a whole different feel to it, the different everything to that. So, and now this, so this romance thing, I love writing romance. Like the love stories are so, they just grab you, right? That's, to me, once you can, reach a reader's heart, then you'll reach their head and they will be wanting to learn more and more and more. So it sounds like you have a lot to teach us. When did you come up with this idea?
I came up with the idea, actually, it was during the pandemic. Of course, during the pandemic, there wasn't much to do other than walk absolutely everywhere. And so I got into like really listening to podcasts while going on these big long walks of Toronto. And I came across this one podcast. It was called Intrigue Tunnel 29. And it was about these students who dug tunnels beneath the Berlin Wall to get friends and families and loved ones out of East Berlin, and kind of what happened to these tunnels and to these students. And, the Stasi was on to them at one point, and NBC ended up coming in and filming one of these tunnels, one of these escapes. And so it completely caught my attention, where I was like, okay, that's it. That's where I need to put these two lovers. They're on opposite sides of the wall, and they're fighting to get to each other. And I saw Uli in the tunnel. I just saw him in a tunnel trying to get to Lise, and what is going to happen. And, at that point, I really wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not, but I knew that was where he was going to be. And I knew that was where his love was going to take him, was diving into the depths beneath Berlin.
That's one of the cool things that we find as writers, right? We get these messages from beyond. Like you, I can see them. I can see what's happening. And which is weird, right? We're seeing fictional people and we're visualizing things that don't exist. It's weird. We have a weird existence as writers, but it's so rewarding to be able to.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit. I remember one of my friends asked me once what was it? She said something along the lines of like, do you see ghosts? Basically. She was like, do you ever see ghosts, or do you ever get messages from ghosts? And I was like, not really. And she goes, but I feel like that's kind of what you're doing as a writer, is you're talking to these ghosts, and you're writing down their stories. And it is kind of an apt comparison in a way, I think.
I think so too. I used to say that a lot, is that who is to say that these stories did not happen, right? Maybe there was an Uli and Lise, but we don't know. And so maybe that's what it is. I've likened it to being, I don't know, sort of like a medium, being able to receive whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it comes from beyond or if I'm just loony, but I love being able to pull them out of thin air and see them. And do you ever, like, when you're writing them, do you visualize the characters? Like, do you tie them to a movie star, or do you do any of those things?
So with all of my books, the very first process that I go through, I see the whole thing as a movie in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I just write the whole thing down like I'm watching a movie unfold.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I use to like build it all out, is taking this movie that's just playing in my brain and transposing it in 4 or 5 pages, and then building that into the plot.
Oh, I'm going to try that. That's neat.
Yeah.
It sounds very organized. But
I don't know about organized.
But then after that, all the branches come off of the trunk, and that's where all the work comes from, the historical fiction. But I love that because it's a very well-rounded way to look at it. And so back to my story, do you picture somebody like a movie star when you're writing them, when you're creating them?
Kind of. I mean, I do picture, I'll often take people from my life, and I'll kind of have that image in my head, and then I'll build their kind of physical appearance based on a friend, or an ex-boyfriend or whatever.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I do. With this one, Uli, he's modeled on Buddy Holly, actually. That's his celebrity doppelganger, so to speak.
Nice. So
tall and gangly and bespectacled.
So if you're talking about sort of the Buddy Holly thing, I'm thinking, is there music in the book? I'm thinking it sounds musical that way. I know, writing about the 60s, for me, the songs that came out of the 60s, the music from all that was incredible. So did you work with that?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I did, and it was funny because I didn't even realize at the time that I was writing the book that music is referenced so often in it. One of the inspirations, in those early sort of stages of drafting, was David Bowie's song Heroes, which actually is a song about the Berlin Wall. It is about a couple at the Berlin Wall. And that was kind of that was the musical inspiration for the book. And then it sort of spun out from there. So I've actually got a Spotify. This is the first time I've done this. I haven't done it for any of my other books, but I have a Spotify playlist that goes through East and West Germany. And it also, because the book takes place over 30 years, it also chronicles all of the musical kind of movements that were happening in Germany at the time. So we get into the punk movement. We go from Elvis and then Linda Ronstadt through to the punk movement. And then I'm also peppering in German musicians as well, which I listened to a lot of German music while I was writing this, and music from East Berlin, which we never really hear about.
That would be fascinating. Well, you have to send me the link to that Spotify and I'll share it here.
I will, yeah.
Yeah, because I
Yeah, for
know
sure.
a lot of people talk about writing playlists. I think, well, Kate Quinn always does one, I think, and putting down
Mhm.
all these songs that inspire them and they listen to. But I don't know. I'm doing it more with this book I'm doing because it's music is so central to the 60s, as you know. But
Yeah.
normally I work in silence. How do you work with that? Like, do you need input while you're working or?
I need music. I listen to soundtracks a lot. I can't listen to anything with words while I'm writing
Mm.
because I get too distracted. But I love like movie scores. I think on Spotify I'm like the top 1% of listeners of like Bear McCreary and
Oh,
Martin Phipps and all of these. And I'm like, well,
okay.
of course, yeah. All
Very
of these
good.
film scorers who just do these unbelievable film scores, and that's what I listen to. Yeah.
Yeah, those are very effective. I used to
Mhm.
listen to classical because I was trained in classical music, but I can't listen to it now
Of
because I
course.
know the music too well. It's like listening to lyrics. It's too distracting. So
Yeah.
that you have to send me that link for that. So um tell me about how it felt. I don't know, this is going to be awkward. You can tell me it's a stupid question if you want, but you've written mostly, as you said, about sisters and the relationships between women and
Mhm.
women unrecognized through history and working together. And then now you've got the romantic thing. So how did it feel for you to make that transition? Because I know it's different because when you're talking in The Secret Keeper, the sisters talk because they know each other so well. And then when I bring in,
Yeah.
for example, it changes the way they think a little bit. So how did that feel for you? Was it really different?
It was. And I mean, this is the first time also that I was like writing from a male perspective too. Like
Yes.
Uli is the other point of view protagonist in the book. And it did feel different. And it felt different to be portraying a connection that is as deep and heartfelt as sisterhood in a completely different way. You know, like what is it? How many forms of love? Plato says that there are like X number of forms of love,
Yeah,
platonic and romantic and karyos or whatever.
right.
And yeah, it was really interesting to kind of like make that switch in my head to like that side of the relationship. It's not a relationship of so much um familiarity and comfort as it is about longing and want and
Yes.
kind of like building that aspect into who they are, and it's all aspirational too,
And
right?
so,
Because not only am I writing this, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Not only are you writing this,
No, not only am I writing this story about, you know, about love and the connection that they have, but also like to pull them away from it really early on
yeah, and to
and
feel
have that still sustain them throughout all of this time that they're apart. It was a really interesting challenge. I really enjoyed it.
I
Yeah.
I think this could turn into one of my top books. I can't wait. Okay, so one more question on that. Um, did it
Yeah.
feel different to you to write from the male perspective? Because I personally love writing from the male perspective. I like it better. I've like I said before, men are simple in the way that they say what they're going to do and they do it, right? And in the same thing, we can say what we want to do, but it's going to take so much wandering around in our heads to get there. Whereas a man is straightforward. He has other things to think about, and I like writing them better. Did you find like did you connect with it and did it feel was it hard or did you like it or what?
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I feel like I'm going to be writing male characters a lot more in a way. I mean, I think with any character, male, female, non-binary, whatever, you're always looking to just get to the heart of their humanity, right?
Right.
And that's the same no matter, you know, no matter what. It's the
Yeah.
humanity that you're writing towards. Um, but yeah, it was definitely, you know, it was a slightly different vocabulary, I would say, writing this, you know, this like straight German guy, and
Mm-hmm.
he's so different from Lise, and
Yeah.
yeah, what are
Oh,
his priorities?
that's
Yeah.
so fun. Well, good for you. I'm happy for you because I love shifting things and finding out where your
Mhm.
comfort is most. So now this is the question that you always have to answer. And every author I know it's going to be a yes, but are you working on something right now?
Yeah,
Of
of
course.
course. I, you know, it's funny because so I wrote 4 books in 5 years, and I was like, coming to the end, I was like, this is going to be my last book for a while. Like, I very much was like, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to like go stand in some grass for a little bit. I'm gonna like poke my head out from behind my computer and see the world. And like the minute I pressed send on the manuscript to my editor, I was like, oh no, I have another book idea. And then like 2 weeks later, I was like, oh no, I have another book idea. So now I'm writing 2 books concurrently right now. So that break is not going to be very long lasting. There's no deadline for them. They're not,
Of
you know,
course.
they're not under deadline though. So I've got a little more time. I think I'm going to be on like a leisurely pace. One is actually it's a contemporary rom-com.
Nice.
So I'm trying my hand at that.
I want to
And
try.
then the other one's historical again.
I want to try
Yeah.
some different genres, play with some different ideas. I think that would be fun and give your brain a little bit of a different path to follow just for a little while. Not that it's
That
easier.
was kind of my
Diff-
thought.
yeah. And it's the same with reading, right? Because we read a lot. I don't know about you, but I read a lot of historical fiction because that's my go-to.
Mhm.
But I've been so overwhelmed by history lately that I've been searching out those happy little book covers that have been coming out this summer and reading all about simplistic kind of love stories. You know, I'm not saying that it's easy to write those. I'm saying that
No.
you don't have to research as much with the history and you don't have to get every detail right when it's I'm excited to read that too.
Oh,
I know
that's
it's
the
a lot of
thing.
rush, but
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, you know, when I get a historical detail wrong, and like every single book has one thing, it's got like the one historical detail that you overlooked. And I absolutely like beat myself up over that one thing forever. Like I care so much about the research and I love the research. Like I love doing it. But it's nice to kind of be doing a project where it's much more like close to my lived experience. And it's kind of like, okay, I don't have to worry because I know that I'm going to get the context right on this because it's basically a lightly fictionalized version of my life.
yeah,
So good, you know?
good for you. That's exciting. Do you
Mhm.
like this is going back and forth, but do you like the research process? Like you've got what is it? You've got professional communication degree and creative writing and English lit. Do you like the research behind the scenes? Or
I love it.
do you like one better than the other? I think that's a loaded question. But is it for me, it's always 50-50, right? You can't do one without the other. So,
No, and I mean, you can go too far down the research rabbit hole too. Like, I often will use research as a procrastination technique. And I kind of have to catch myself and be like, Bryn, do you really need to know that for the story? Or are you just in a Wikipedia spiral, right? Like,
yeah, because
mhm.
the details are important, but
But
the other danger with that is going down the rabbit hole and finding what you want to write about next. That's dangerous too.
oh, 100%, because partway, like when you get into the, you know, the doldrums of editing and you're on like your 8th round of the manuscript and you just can't really look at it anymore, but you have to look at it again. That's always the time where a new idea comes into your head and is like bright and shiny and sexy. And you're like, oh, that's, hi, who are you? And that's kind of where you want to go, right?
Absolutely. They all have their own personality, but they have no sense of, distance. Just back off, let me finish. I need to finish. It's like my
Exactly.
cat. My cat's always barging in and walking all over my keyboard. I need your attention now. And of course I have to put her away.
Oh, my dog. No, my dog in the course of this interview has been back and forth like 4 times. Yeah, she's sleeping on my feet. So
We're
I'm
lucky
familiar.
lucky from this side because I have 3 cats here. I don't own any cats, but one of my daughter owns an orange cat named Phoebe that well, she lives here all the time. But her sister has she has a really neat thing. She's got Penny, who is her first cat, and who actually is Phoebe's mother. But then she and her fiance have they rescued a cat. This is a long story. I'll make it short. But he was working on an on the oil rigs out here in Alberta, and he found this sad little cat who was eating pizza and just making
Oh,
just kind of all by herself in the middle of nowhere. And he said, "Well, I can't leave her here." So they brought her home.
no.
Now she's the most spoiled little thing in the world, and she's really got such a different personality. So I'm learning about cats. This was not. I never thought I was gonna have cats. So now I have all three because my other daughter's away, and none of them really like each other. So politics of cats.
Have you heard about the cat distribution system?
No, what's that?
So the cat distribution system says the universe chooses to bestow cats upon people
Oh,
at the right time. A cat will like enter your life, and it's always like, yeah, you found a cat in a garbage can and the cat's like there and you're like, okay, I guess you're mine now. It's called
yeah,
the cat distribution network. Yeah, cat distribution system.
I like that. I like it, and I believe it too because
I know,
they're pretty fussy
it's
and pretty
cute.
opinionated. So yeah, they'll barge in where they want. Uh, well, we'll have to write about cats sometime, you know, just write something about that. Work that into your rom-com and
Oh
see if
yeah,
a good cat connection.
my sister has cats, and yeah, definitely there's a book in them.
Well, thank you so much, Bryn. I'm very excited to read the book. Anything for a good
Thank you.
dramatic love story set in history. That is right up my alley. So I am going to be watching my mailbox, and thank you, for coming on here and chatting with us. I know that on the comments from a few days ago, people have already ordered and are waiting for it to arrive. So um, you got
Yay.
it over here. So
Oh, well,
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's so nice chatting with you as always. And thank you to your readers as well. Hi, everybody. I hope you like the book.
I know they will because they're your readers too. So thank you again. It was great talking to you. Great seeing you. You look super. And I'll see you next time. Next book, maybe.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.